Welcome to the DLJonesBooks channel. It's time again for our WandaVision episode recap. This time we're going to be recapping WandaVision episode 7, which just came out today. And a lot of things happened in this show. I really enjoyed it. So first, before we get started, I want to remind you that this episode will contain spoilers for everything that happens in WandaVision episode 7 and potentially previous episodes, because of course, sometimes we go back and talk about things that happened before this episode and everything. But you've been warned, there will be spoilers in this show for WandaVision episode 7, and we will get in on that right after the intro. All right off the bat, this episode starts off with Wanda in bed. She's in bed, look like she's trying to recover from the events that happened towards the end of the episode last week. Look like, she's kind of, trying to recuperate. Look like it took out a lot of her, and like her mental stability is not quite all there. Maybe she's a little depressed or sad or whatever. But the kids come in and they're trying to see what's, if she's asleep or whatever, But they also have like some weird glitchy things going on where like the stuff that they are seeing, like the game controllers that they're playing video games, and the game controllers and stuff are switching to different types of consoles, from Atari to Nintendo to at one time a pack of Uno cards. But yeah, it seems like it's like some glitchy stuff going on. Wanda's laying in bed. Also, this episode seems like we're in the 2000s. There's a lot of like the little sort of like a lot of the more 2000 type shows like The Office and stuff like that, where they have like testimonials, where the camera's looking at the actor in between different scenes and the actor is talking to the screen. Yeah, that's going on. So looks like we're in the 2000s, and they look like they're modeling a lot of this part of it out of The Office. Then you get to the intro, and the intro music comes in, and it's basically like The Office. It got some kind of music playing that kind of reminds you of the Office theme song, that starts in the beginning of the that TV show, The Office. But the only difference is that everything that shows up on the screen is something, some kind of image with Wanda up there, with the word Wanda. And it says that on every single image that shows up on the screen until it gets to the end. Then it adds Vision at the end of the name. And then, the whole thing as far as the music that plays and everything kind of just reminds you of The Office. So it looks like they're kind of modeling at least Wanda's portion of this episode based on what you would typically see, in an episode of The Office. Next, it takes us to the Sword, to Sword, little makeshift base. It looks like they built a new base. They're calling it a retreat, and it's 8 miles outside of the Hex. And, you see them working to put that together and everything. And then you got Director Haywood. He's talking to another person, which I'm not sure who this person is or what this person's name is, but she seems to be kind of important. But anyway, while he's talking to this person, he mentions, is everything ready? And it sounds like that they're planning another attack. He doesn't specifically say it, but he says, I'm preparing for a launch later that day. So I'm thinking that they're going to try to do another attack on Westview. Next, we have Vision. He wakes up, from, in the last episode, you remember he was just laying on the ground, and the Hex kind of expanded past his range, which put him back inside the Hex. So now they show him waking up from that. He stands up and he's looking around, and he see all the new Sword agents who are now like clowns and different people that look like they're part of a circus, because that whole new area that was added looked like it turned into sort of like a carnival circus type thing. Well, he looks around and he sees Darcy. Darcy is leaning up against a little old-timey looking truck, and she's still chained up. Instead of having the handcuffs like she was when she was before the Hex expanded, she's chained up with chains wrapped all around her, and someone, calls her the escape artist. So it looks like that inside the Hex, her role is sort of like a performer, like a circus performer, an escape artist, magician type circus performer, So Vision walks over to her and tries to talk to her. He remembers her, because he remembered locking eyes with her when he was outside of the Hex and she was trying to help him. So he recognized her and he walks over to her and tries to talk to her, which of course, she's under the spell. So she doesn't remember him. She don't know what he's talking about. Next, we have Wanda and the twins. The twins are sitting on the couch and Wanda walks in and she's still kind of moping around a little bit. Now, the twins are asking her a lot of questions. They're asking her about Pietro. They're asking her about Vision, where Vision is and everything. And Wanda basically seemed like she's kind of overwhelmed with everything. She basically tells them Pietro is not your uncle. She don't know who he is, but he's not your uncle. And then she says Vision, she don't know where Vision is, but if he wanted to be here, he'll be here, So she seems like she's kind of, kind of overwhelmed, and they're asking more questions. And right when they're asking more questions, Agnes shows up. She just comes through the front door and she walks over and she's, she makes a comment about how, your mom needs some rest. Let's give her a mommy day or whatever. And she offers to take the twins with her to give Wanda a break, give Wanda the day to herself and she'll hang out with the twins. So she take the two twins and then they leave out the front door. Okay, so now we check in with Monica and Agent Woo. If you remember the last time, they were in that truck, sort of like a Humvee, in the last episode. They was going to meet the person who had texted her to, that she had been trying to get in contact with, the aerospace engineer. I think I've been calling it electrical engineer in the past episodes, but it was actually an aerospace engineer. But she's on it. They're on their way to meet this person. They're almost there. But then Agent Woo decides to check his phone and he realized that Darcy did indeed, crack that last file that she wanted to crack. So he's looking at that information, and what he find out is that Director Haywood actually was trying to bring Vision back online. They wasn't trying to use parts to get information or build other things off of, stuff they learned from Vision. They was actually trying to bring Vision himself back online, and then they tried several times and nothing that they tried worked. And it wasn't until Wanda showed up that Vision was able to come back online, So they realized this and they was like, okay, a lot of this stuff may be happening because of Director Haywood, But right after they come to that realization, then they meet up with the people that they were going to meet, and they show up and it's like a little small camp of, look like just military people, not sword agents or anything like that. This just looks like regular military people, Army, Air Force, those type of military people. And she shows up and then, everybody there, they're calling Monica camp captain, and what you find out is that they are actually there to deliver some equipment that Monica had requested, I'm guessing that the person that she's talking to or the people that's in that little camp is not the actual person that she sent the message to, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it was that simple. Maybe she was just sending a message to that unit or whatever to build this thing. Or maybe she sent the message to a specific person and these people here are who that specific person sent. They just haven't revealed to us who this specific person was yet. But anyway, while they're talking, they show her the vehicle. And it's like some kind of huge vehicle. Look like it's like a 6-wheel vehicle. They call it like a space rover or a space assault vehicle or something like that. And they ask her, is this, what you need? Is this made to the specs that you sent? And Monica was pleased with it. She was like, yes, this should work, Next, we're back with Vision. He's still running around behind Darcy. He's trying to talk to her. He's trying to, because, he remembers her from the night before and he know that they kind of met eyes and they had a connection. So he felt like Darcy is the person that he needs to be talking to. And he remembers seeing the email that was sent, a couple of episodes ago. So he's trying to talk to her, but she's under the spell. She's running around still playing the character. And eventually he puts his hand on her head and takes her out of the spell. Once he takes her out of the spell, she becomes Darcy, Dr. Darcy Lewis, and she knows everything that's going on. So they decided they need to get out of there so they can talk, But there's one other person that's part of the little circus group that they are supposedly a part of that's trying to keep them from leaving, And they ended up escaping that little area in a funnel cake truck, and just leaving from out of there. Next, we got a little scene with Wanda. She's just basically at her house by herself because, Agnes took the twins away. So she's at the house by herself and she's kind of just relaxing and everything. But everything in the house is going crazy. The TV, the decorations, everything is switching between different eras. Like the TV is going from like a 50s style TV to a 2000 style TV to an 80s style TV. And everything in the house, as she look around, everything is just kind of flip-flopping everywhere. And she kind of doesn't know what's going on. She's kind of losing control. So then she have like an office style testimony. Remember I said this episode is kind of, her parts of the episode is kind of, mimicking that TV show The Office. And, they always have these testimonials and stuff. Well, she has her testimonial. So while she's talking, she's looking at the camera, she's talking, and she's pretty much explaining how she don't understand what's going on. She don't have no control over everything. And she's just wondering what's going on. But then a voice from the back, like from behind the camera, says, "Do you think this is punishment for what you did?" And it kind of shocks her. And she looks at the camera and she's like, "You're not supposed to talk, Then we have a commercial. Now, this was a kind of brief commercial. It was basically like a commercial that will remind you of like, a medicine type of commercial, which in this case, it was for antidepressants. And the product was called Nexus. So it just shows like a woman that she's going around, she's, depressed and everything, and the commercial was advertising this medicine. The funny thing was that this the tagline for this commercial was Nexus, because the world doesn't revolve around you, or does it? Next, we're back with Monica. Monica, she's suiting up to get ready to take the truck through the barrier, So she suits up, everybody's watching and everything. And she climbs into the truck, and then she just goes full speed ahead in the truck. On the way there, Agent Wu asked the military person, "Do you think this will get through the barrier?" And the military person like, "Yeah, it should go right through." But what happens is she goes full steam ahead and just slams into the barrier and stop. And she just hits the gas and she's pushing and pushing and pushing. And the truck is trying to force through the barrier. It's actually lift up the front and everything. And the barrier is kind of coming through at the bottom of the truck. And they can see where the barrier is starting to reconfigure the truck. So they start yelling for Monica to get out the truck. They was like, "They're rewriting the truck. You need to get out. You need to get out." So Monica gets out the truck. She gets out the truck. She kind of climbs up the top and just falls down and takes like a spill, hits the ground or whatever. And then while she does that, she looks back up and she sees that the truck is still trying to go through the barrier, because I'm guessing it's already set to go forward, and it didn't stop when she fell out. So it's still trying to get through the barrier, and it kind of gets lifted up by the barrier, and then the barrier just throw it away, throw it back onto the ground. It goes across the little field and hit the ground and fall. And when it lands, you look and you can see the front half of that truck, which used to be like a space looking vehicle. The front half of that truck looks like an old pickup truck, where the back half still looks like, what it did when they first started. So she gets up and she looks at the truck for a few minutes, and then she says, "I think I can make it through." So then she runs towards the barrier. She runs. They're yelling for her not to do it because they see what happened to the truck. And they know about what Darcy said about the barrier rewriting her cells and stuff in the previous episode. But she doesn't care. She just runs towards the barrier, and she runs and she puts her hand on the barrier and she pushes through. And finally, she gets inside the barrier. And while she's in the barrier, she really has to force herself through. A lot of changes and stuff is going on. And she pushes and pushes and keeps going forward and everything. And next thing you know, she steps out on the other side of the barrier. When she gets to the other side of the barrier, something weird happens. All of a sudden, she gets there and she kind of looking down. But then when she looks up, her eyes are like glowing blue. Her eyes are glowing blue. And then they show like how it looks from her perspective. And it looks like she can see like different stuff. She can see power going through the power lines. The world just looks different to her. She's looking around like that. And then all of a sudden, she does that for a couple of seconds, and then she kind of like shakes it off, and her eyes turn back to normal, and her vision and stuff turn back to normal. And, when I'm looking at this, I'm like, wow, does it mean that she now has powers? Which I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, about my thoughts on this. But yeah, as far as how it looks like this trip through the barrier did something to her. It gave her powers and stuff, because now, her eyes are glowing and she's looking around, looking like she can see like the electric particles of the world and everything. So that was pretty interesting. Next, we got a brief scene with Vision and Darcy. And by this point, Darcy has kind of explained a lot of what went on before all of this stuff. Explained about how he died trying to help save the universe and everything. And Vision is, listening, and he's kind of trying to grasp what's going on. But they're trying to make it to his house. They're trying to get somewhere where they can talk. And I'm guessing where they can talk to Wanda and stuff like that. But then they notice that they just keep getting stopped. Like every time they come to an intersection, the light is red and all of this kind of stuff. And then at some point when Vision finally notices it, there's like a work crew that came and it just posted up right in front of them to keep them from going, And Vision, mentions, Vision is having his testimonial sections also, just like Wanda was, in the Office style. And he's, coming to the realization in those testimonials that it seems like something is keeping him away from going home. It's something that's trying to force him to not be able to get home. While he's doing that testimonial and he comes to that realization, he's just decide, what am I doing? Why am I sitting here talking to you? I need to get home and find out what's going on. And then it flashes back to him sitting in the truck with Darcy, and he just all of a sudden, phases through the roof of the truck and just flies away. And Darcy looks and was like, well, that just happened, Next, we have Monica. She's made it to Wanda's house. She's walking around and, they show her walking around the house. And then basically she just comes into the front door. She walks in the front door looking for Wanda. Wanda's in the kitchen of her house. So Monica just walks in the front door looking for Wanda. Wanda sees her and she's surprised. She's like, what are you doing here? So Monica just tries to talk to her because, Monica is still trying to reason with her. Monica at this point, throughout this whole series, Monica has kind of been, not on her side, but wanting to help Wanda, not necessarily looking at her as like a terrorist or a threat or something like that. So she walks in and she's like, trying to talk to Wanda, but Wanda, she's not having it. She's like, you're not supposed to get here. You're not supposed to be here. Get out, and then Wanda lifts her hands and they light up, with the red, and she blasts Wanda, This time she blasts Wanda and it sends Wanda out the front door, and she's kind of holding Wanda in the air with her magic, and Wanda's, still trying to tell her, I just want to talk. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not, I'm on your side and all of this stuff. And Wanda doesn't buy it. So Wanda kind of like slams her hand down, trying to slam Monica to the ground. She's way up in the air, and Monica goes to the ground. But when she hits the ground, this lightning, like kind of lightning or light white, like barrier goes around her legs and feet and kind of helps her just land normally, And when she lands, she looks up and her eyes are blue again, which by now I'm looking at it like she just has powers, Okay, about Monica's powers. Now, I got one thought about this, and this thought is part of what I wish and part of what I think. It's kind of straddles the line between both of those, but I think this is the case. What the show wants us to think is that her going back and forth through the barrier is giving her powers. That's what the show wants us to think. I believe that she already has powers. I believe she had powers before all of this stuff happened, probably even before the snap and all of that kind of stuff. I believe she just had powers already. Nobody knew about them. She was keeping it to herself as far as everybody that's been in this show so far. But I believe she has powers. I don't think that any of this stuff is new. And one of the reasons I think that is because, if you look back, every time they mention her blood work or scans or anything like that, the show is trying to make us think that going through the barrier is what's changing her. But every time they mentioned to her, she didn't seem concerned at all. A lot of times she either blew it off or changed the subject. She did not seem concerned at all about that. It didn't deter her any way whatsoever as far as going back in through the barrier again. So I'm thinking she already has powers. I'm thinking none of this is new. It's new to us as the viewers, but I think before this show even started, she had powers. She already had the Spectrum powers, and I don't think it has anything to do with what's going on with Wanda that this stuff is happening, other than this stuff is kind of forcing her to use it, Now, the part of it that I think is wishful thinking is I kind of hope that that's the case too. Monica Rambeau in the comics has such a history as far as being the first female Captain Marvel, and being, all of these different characters as far as Spectrum. She was Captain Marvel. She was Photon. She got all of these different names, and she has this big history in the comics. And I really hope that they don't just dwindle it all down to her getting her powers with some simple being thrown through a barrier thing. I just hope they don't do that. So like I said, part of what I think about this is part of what I think, based on what I'm seeing. And part of it is wishful thinking, is what I hope it is, because I just hope they don't, just narrow it down to just a simple thrown through the barrier gave her powers type thing. I just hope that that's not it, All right, so once Wanda threw Monica to the ground and she kind of protected herself with those new powers, new to us powers that she has, Wanda threatened her, don't make me, hurt you. And she basically told Wanda, I'm not scared. And also I'm not your enemy. She's trying to explain to her what she think is going on. She's like, Director Haywood is the one that sent the missiles to you. I had nothing to do with that. Director Haywood is the one that's trying to bring Vision back online. I didn't know anything about that. And Wanda for a minute is kind of stopped. She's kind of listening, it's like she's kind of getting through a little bit. And you can see Agnes, they show a scene where Agnes is watching through the window and she can see that Wanda is starting to listen a little bit, and she kind of gets angry and she closes the curtains and she walk off. So they continue talking, Monica is still talking to Wanda, and Wanda is still kind of skeptical, but you can tell she's listening, she's open to hearing what Wanda is saying, but before she get too far with that conversation, Agnes just shows up and puts her arm around Wanda and was like, leave her alone. You're not welcome here. Basically told Monica she's not welcome here and told her to get away. And she walks away with Wanda, so Monica just left standing there by herself while Agnes, takes Wanda away. Next, we show Agnes. She walks into Agnes's house with Wanda, and she's like, you have a seat and relax, and Agnes goes off to do something. And Wanda goes and she sits down. And when she sits down, she looks around and she notices all of this stuff all over the house that look like it's geared towards either the twins or stuff that has happened in past episodes. Like she see the rabbit in the cage. She see like sandwiches on the table where it looked like the twins had been there and was eating the sandwiches. She see cartoons on the TV, but she looks around and she don't see the twins. So she yells out to Agnes. She's like, where are the twins? And she's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe they're in the basement playing, So Wanda gets up and she's looking around the house, and you could tell she's skeptical now about what she's seeing. So she looks around the house and she goes to the basement, and there's a door, that she has to open to get to the basement. And she opens the door and she walks down these stairs. And when she gets down these stairs, things kind of change. Like the hallway at the bottom of the stairs kind of look like a dungeon type hallway. She notices it and she walks through the hallway. And once she gets through the hallway, she gets in this big open room. And the room just looks like a dungeon, look like a dungeon that would be in a castle with concrete walls and everything. There's little look like magical books on shelves and stuff like that, and little glowing red things. So she's looking around at that. And then while she's doing that, Agnes walks in holding the rabbit, and she's petting the rabbit. And she walks in and she looks at Wanda and she says, you're not the only magical person in this town, basically, kind of revealing herself to Wanda. And she kind of holds her hand up, and then the door where Wanda came in slams shut. So now we know Agnes has magic too. So then she says to Wanda, let me introduce myself. My name is Agatha Hartford. Or Hartley. I couldn't quite understand what it is. It's the character from the comics, but she just pretty much reveals and introduces herself as Agatha the Witch, And then when she does that, all of a sudden her eyes start glowing like purple. And then she looks at Wanda, and Wanda gets like these purple, like energy things around her face, which is like a way that Agnes is revealing to Wanda what's been going on. She gives Wanda a vision, and in that vision, you see all of the things Agnes had been doing behind the scenes, and it shows all of that stuff. Like, it shows where a lot of the stuff that was going on, the camera would zoom back and you would see Agnes somewhere close, and she's like doing things with her hand, and you see the purple little magic, energy stuff causing those things to happen. And then at the end of that little montage, in that montage, for one, you see that she was the one that was controlling Pietro. They show Pietro knocking on the door for the first time, and then the camera zooms out and you see Agnes is sitting like on the street on a blanket with like a glass of wine, and she's doing the little magic thing, and you got the purple on her hand, and then there's purple around Pietro also, and then at the end of that, you show her carrying the dead dog, and she says, I was the one that killed Sparky, and the song that's playing is saying Agatha did it all, but that was pretty interesting. And then right at the end of that, when she admits to, she was the one that killed the dog, that's when the episode ended. That's the end of the episode. So I'm guessing this episode, the big reveal was Agatha. Now we know that Agnes is Agatha the Witch from the comics. Now, what she's doing, why she's doing it, if she's the only one doing it, We don't know yet, but right now we know that a lot of stuff that was going on was not being done by Wanda, but instead was being done by Agatha. You know, she's the one that's behind a lot of the stuff as far as the magical little things that's been happening. Okay, so that's the end of the episode, but this episode did something that they hadn't done so far. And I almost didn't see it. You know, I actually turned it off after this, and then I heard about it and I went back to watch this part. I didn't know it was there, but there was an end screen, a post episode, you know, mid credits scene, you know, that was there that showed up. Usually if you remember all of the episodes, when the credits come up, it's usually a really long credit. I want to say a good 5 minutes of credits, you know, is long, you know. And I got to the point where, you know, I figured that they wasn't doing the post-credit thing. So I just kind of been turning it off. But I heard about this and I had to go back and watch it again. But this had a mid-credit scene. And what it was Monica. She is at Agatha's house and she's walking around, and, you know, she's still looking for Wanda. So she's walking around and she's looking at a window. And then she noticed like the cellar doors that's on the side of the house, that's towards the bottom of the house. And she goes to open the cellar doors. And when she does that, she hear a voice, you know, saying something about, you know, about her curiosity. You had to look or something like that. And when she turns around, it's Pietro, you know, it's Pietro standing there. But then when the camera shows back on Monica, her eyes light up blue again, you know, so it looked like, you know, she's activating her power. She's about to do something. And then that scene ends, you know. But that was a pretty interesting scene. It was kind of a satisfying scene, which, you know, like I said earlier, I think Monica has powers and has had powers the whole time. I don't think this is anything new. I don't think it's anything that was given to her by going through the barrier. I think she just always had powers. Just nobody that was in the show so far knew about it. Or if they did know, they never said anything about it. But I think she already has powers, you know. And I think there's 2 more episodes left. We're probably going to see more of that coming up. But that's the end of episode 7 of WandaVision. What did you think about this episode? I'll be honest with you. This show is kind of giving me the same kind of feelings that Lost did. You know, I remember when the show Lost came out, I was really addicted to that show. But what that show basically did was every day it introduced questions. And we spent like episodes and episodes of just wondering what this mean, what that mean, what this mean. And this show seemed like it's doing the same thing. It's giving you probably about 20 questions to 2 answers, you know, and it's just building from there, you know. They answered a little bit in this episode. You know, the question that everybody kind of knew already was that Agnes was Agatha the Witch. They answered that question, and we find out that she is the one that was behind of a lot of the stuff that was going on. But I don't know if she's the main person. You know, I don't know if somebody's controlling her or she's working for somebody or what, you know, because in the comics, I don't think she was really a bad guy in the comics. In the comics, I think she kind of was, you know, not always good, but has also helped good people, you know, always, you know, fought alongside good people and stuff like that. I don't think she was like a villain in the comics ever, if I know correctly, which I don't know too much about the character, just from what I've read since this show has been coming on. But yeah, that's it. Episode 7, WandaVision. Tell me what you think about it in the comments below. Are you still enjoying the show? What do you think about this episode? Let me know. And make sure you click subscribe and click the like button. That really helps out the channel. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. You made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. While you're here, why don't you check out that video right there? Or maybe that one right there. And, you know, while you're at it, go ahead and click my image in the middle there and subscribe to this channel.